And it's also the month, which is Thanksgiving, which is not a good holiday when we know the history of it. We call it the National Day of Mourning, what the American Indian movement called it. It's a national day of mourning for our Wampanoag relatives that are in Massachusetts. Every year, they have to deal with that. Every year of everyone celebrating this day. No matter how we call it, Friendsgiving, Family Day. Sure. Well, we like to change it. We like to dress it up. But at the end of the day, Wampanoag people and the Pequot people are like, this day, our ancestors, our direct descendants were murdered and used for this land that we're on.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Not All Hood. Now, there are social media activists and there are on-the-ground frontline freedom fighters like Queen Yonasda Lone Wolf. An Oglala Lakota Native American and Black woman, Queen Yonasda has dedicated her life to protecting civil rights of Native and Black Americans. She has organized nationwide rallies and marches from protests fighting for justice for Freddie Gray to George Floyd, and has even stood in front of bulldozers at Standing Rock protesting against the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. In this episode, we discuss the health tolls being a lifelong advocate takes on the body, the complex relationship between Native Americans and Black Americans, the hypocrisy of Columbus Day. Man, this episode is chock full of the good stuff. Enjoy the conversation.
I want to start with, everybody the term is like, what's good? What's good? But I actually really want to start.
Yeah. Like literally what's good?
Like what's good either in what's good in your life or name one thing good in your life or one thing good in the world. We got you go first, Candace.
Oh, yeah. Life good in the world? Oh, gosh. There's a lot. I'm grateful for that. One thing good is that I've got good, strong relationships around me and a support system so that no matter what the situation is, it will be all good, as you were saying. That perspective is good.
Yeah.
But you do need to tap into people, the ability to have good conversations. I like being able to say at this age, not that I've mastered a conversation, to move the needle in a relationship, but that I know the tools because you need two people for it. Yeah. So that's what's good, kind of growth in myself, and understanding that if it's not good, if there is a hump, I know how to get to the other side and make it better.
Yeah.
That's good.
I would say that is good. I would say just to piggyback off of that, it would be, I have no drama in my life.
There we go.
I eliminated all drama.
Hallelujah.
Friends that have drama or that are entitled. Like entitlement is a huge thing I had to eliminate out of my life. And attracting people that were entitled. I don't attract.
Feeling entitled to
my time. That time thing. Feeling entitled. You're supposed to call me back. You're supposed to no. Yeah. I'm gonna call you back whenever. Let me take some time out for myself. It's okay to take time out for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't make me feel bad for doing that.
Yeah.
Don't make me feel obligated for doing all of this because I already know who I am and what I pour out. And if you have to question that on the times that I poured it out, it's kind of like that Beyonce song. Every time I said yes, you get mad at me when I said that one no. So so I feel good because I have no drama for the first time.
Wow.
For the first time, this is like the first year. I have no drama.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of happened in my life in the last couple of years just because of, having a wife and daughter. And like just literally, getting to the point where, there are only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah.
And if this person is draining my energy, I need that energy for what I have to do over here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the same thing. Like if someone sweats me because I did not return their text in a timely manner on their time,
right,
and give me grief about that, we're good.
Yeah.
You know, or I didn't call you back, and we're good. Because all of my friends are busy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if I return, so for me, if I send someone a text and don't get a text back, I'll follow up.
Yeah.
Like I don't get offended because they didn't reply.
Yeah.
You know,
in a certain amount of time.
Yeah. So once I kind of, realize, there are actually people in my life who been draining my energy, and me being on my whole nice guy thing, was allowing that.
Yeah.
But I just got to the point where life just really forced me to say, oh, you know what? I don't have time. For this.
Yeah.
So there's a great piece of that.
A certain period in my. Did a lot happen during COVID? Were you cleansed, if you will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, and I don't want to make this to go dark, but you could take it however you want. This is not to go dark, but this is to see the light.
Just for the record, the whole point of starting with what's good is in case we get dark. So there's space for that.
Okay. Yeah. So when I got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer on May 29th, 2020, that was a shift for me. And it was a shift in regards to everything, in regards to really self-analyzing my own self-care, because I always was pouring out to everyone else. I was always like, extending myself, especially in activism and organizing. I've always was just helping everyone else. And it was the first time that I was like, I have to, for the first time, be selfish. Like, be selfish. Like, think about what I'm pouring into me from what I watch, my conversations, the people around me. And and I would say in the past 3 years of even in this battle, it was all these situations that happened that had me have these aha moments of, this is toxic.
Right.
Let me eliminate this. Or I didn't realize how spoiled I was and entitled I was, because I started looking at the people around me when I'm saying exactly what you're saying, like, why are you getting upset with? Because I used to be like, call me back or text me back, or demanding my time with my friends, And I was like, and then when I first was like, wait, why are you upset? I'm not feeling well today. I'm going to call you back when I feel better. And then I was like, ooh, I attracted these people. I was like, oh man, I was this bad. Oh, I was so selfish. I was so entitled. And I had to tell these people, I attracted you. And I'm changing. And either you're going to change with me and respect my time, respect, where I want to do, where I want to be, how I view myself, like all of that, or we're just going to go on 2 different paths. And that's okay. That's okay. We go on 2 different paths. So it was that.
I call that a real life algorithm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have an algorithm, where we're here, and what we put out, it's going to continue to repeat itself.
Yeah.
But we do it in real life in terms of the people that we start bringing into our circles, and also what we put out.
Yeah.
And like you said, it attracts the same thing over and over again until we realize I am in an echo chamber here.
Yeah.
And I guess you said, and everybody around me is acting like they're privileged.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that real life algorithm.
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
So did the cancer come from the Dakota Pipeline protests?
Yes. Okay. So in 2016, there was a Dakota Access Pipeline, which was, it was all of the funders. Who was president? Obama. Obama. Yeah. It really doesn't matter who's president when it comes down to oil fights and climate wars and things like that, because it's always the money. It's always the money. And then politically, they fall right in line. So it was the Dakota Access Pipeline. It was a pipeline to go from the top of an oil pipeline to go along the Missouri River that connects to the Mississippi River. But it was that Missouri River. The Keystone XL.
Keystone, sure.
That was along down the Mississippi River. And so we were all fighting in the climate environmental fight. We were fighting against these oil pipelines because we know, I don't know if anyone's seen an oil pipeline. It's not in the water. It's not in the ground. It's literally on top. And it's usually right next to a river. or a water source. The reason for it is because of the fact that if it happens to burst, and oil pipelines do burst or faulty or whatever, it goes through the water. And there's no way to clean this out. No way to clean oil. We learned this when we was in science in fourth grade, you know.
You've seen the Exxon spill.
But this is like on a mass magnitude because this is our drinking water. We need the Mississippi, the Missouri, you know, we need these rivers in order for us to have clean water. That's our own source of water. And so it was going through my Oceti-Shikomi, which is the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota tribes, with the 7 councils that's in North Dakota, South Dakota. So I'm Oglala Lakota. Standing Rock, Hunkpapa are my sister tribe. They are the people of Sitting Bull. My tribe is the people of Crazy Horse and Red Cloud. And so great chiefs that we come from. We're a warrior tribe. Like we are frontliners. Like it is just beautiful. But so we're warrior people. And so I got the call from one of my aunties, elders, and she was like, I need your help. These kids are running from South Dakota to Washington, D.C. to let everybody know what's happening in Standing Rock. They're building this pipeline and they're doing it illegally through treaty land. So we have reservation land and then we have treaty land. Treaty land is basically the land that the government was like, sign the treaty and this is going to be the land that, you know, that you guys can have. But then it was like, oh, no, this is too much land. We're going to push you guys even more further into a smaller part of land and onto reservations. And so the treaty land is still our land, you know. This settler guy that was leasing the land sold the land illegally to the Army Corps of Engineers.
So question, I'm sorry to stop you. So in the treaty land, so to push you back to the reservation, what happens who's on the treaty land?
We also on the treaty land, but a lot of settlers, meaning they come by, you know, I mean, they come basically, they're squatters.
I see.
On our land. And we have a lot of squatters on treaty land. Yeah. A lot of squatters. It's on stolen. They're stealing the land still.
Right.
And so so a squatter basically who was leasing the land for his grazing of wildlife, cows, things like that. He sold the land illegally to Army Corps of Engineers. And when he did that, he was supposed to he was basically tilling the land. He was putting rows all down because there was so many prairie dogs. In the Midwest, you deal with prairie dogs, which is kind of like what's those things?
Small groundhogs?
Yeah, groundhogs like that. Yeah. So he put all this rows all down. The EPA saw that this rosal he did not properly till this land. This land, he was supposed to clean up the rosal. They said it was on a magnitude level of rosal that could just basically kill wildlife, that could give people cancer and everything. We did not know this. So we're on this land protesting, camping out. So in Native American country, we camp out when we protest. You know how like Ferguson or even George Floyd, you go out and march and then you go back home?
Yeah.
No, we stay out there. And we're camping out and we create a little community and we're out there protesting the entire time. So we all went up to Standing Rock and we set up camp. We're on this land, protesting, getting tear gas, water cannon, everything. Like the stuff that we went through for those 6 months there was a fighter jet that was spraying something on us, like circling around like a fighter plane, and then throwing apples at us. Apples is like basically a mocking Native Americans of red apples, like throwing them at us. So after Standing Rock,
so Standing Rock on treaty land or reservation land?
It was on treaty land.
So where are these settlers while you guys are protesting?
They were either hired to work on the pipeline, or they just was there. It's the settled land, the land mass is the size of, let me see, I would say Connecticut. It's huge. It's huge. It's big. And so, yeah, they're just there. I mean, they're still there today. There's so many settlers that are there. But on that treaty land, no one is there today. But we went and we went and camped out on that land where the pipeline was at.
Okay. That's where the Rosal is still.
Yeah, yep. And we did not.
How long were you there?
6 months. 6 months camping out. And then when it got winter, it was like negative 10 degrees. Like it was freezing. And when the government sprayed water cannons on everybody, I mean, people had hypothermia. They didn't know how to use these military grade, type of like flashbangs and things like that a girl's arm actually blew off from a flashbang. They were using tear gas, bear gas, like it's called bear gas. They was using that on us. I mean, just the level of military stuff that they did on us was horrendous. It was horrible. I would say about 6 months later, we ended up finding out that the owner to the land next to that land, he had a tumor. And then LaDonna, she was our mother of the movement. She also had a tumor of cancer. Then we started getting more people hearing about more women that were losing their babies, that were pregnant, that was having miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. More people started having various forms of cancer. And then I found out, and what was so crazy was in December 2019, my chest and my back was hurting. And I was like, God, am I having a panic attack or what's wrong? I just felt like something was wrong. So I went to the ER and they was like, we see all this stuff in your lungs. It just looks like ground glass. Like, it just looks like you breathed something in. So they kept me for a whole week. They didn't know if it was COVID because remember, this is pre-COVID. Right. This is when everyone had pneumonia and going in. So they was like, let's just check her lungs because we're already checking all these people's lungs for something, And so they kept me for a week, quarantined me off. Went to a doctor. This doctor's pulmonologist. She was like, you know what? You have asthma. So I'm on steroids. Now we're in the height of COVID. I'm on steroids and I'm just like, why is my chest and my back hurt so bad? And my family was like, go to a second opinion. Went to a second opinion. Shout out to Emory. I have to shout them out because they saved my life. But I went to Emory and they was like, you know what? We're not going to sit here and guess. Let's just go into your lungs, do surgery, go into your lungs and get some of these nodules, whatever these things we see inside your lungs and find out what they are. And I was like, because my mother passed of lung cancer. I said, do you think it's lung cancer? And they was like, we're not going to even sit here and guess, but let's just check it. It was George Floyd got murdered. And the city, America's on fire. And I went into my group chat of all of the activists here in Atlanta, Georgia. I said, why are we not doing anything? They was like, it's COVID and we shouldn't be outside and and I was like, no, we need to be outside. In less than 24 hours, I organized a protest at the CNN building. And that morning, which was May 29th, I needed to go get the results of what was in my lungs. So I go to the doctor. The news is down to everyone is calling me, my friend Gerald Griggs from the NAACP, Marcus Coleman. They're like, Queen, where are you at? They were like, there's over 10,000 people down here. And I'm like, wait, what? I said, I'm about to find out what's in my lungs, And
this is and you organized this.
This is my baby. I organized this. And I was like, I'll go to the doctor, find out what's going on. And I see you guys over there, real quick. And I go and the doctor comes in and he goes, all right, I'm just going to just give it to you. I'm just give it to you. And I said, yeah, I'm about to go protest. And he said, is that you that organized the march that I'm seeing on the news? And I'm like, yeah, I'm about to head down there right now, And he was like, okay. He was like, you have angiocarcinoma. And I screamed because I know what sonoma is. My mom has small cell carcinoma. I screamed at the top of my lungs. And I was just like, my life flashed right before me. And he said, I know you're scared. And this quote stays with me. And this is what keeps me going. He said, cancer, he said, I know you've seen your mother go through lung cancer. Cancer is not a death sentence like it was before. We have advanced so much. And he was all like, this is a lifestyle change. And I was like, a lifestyle change. And he's like, he said, you'll see an oncologist in a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay. When I left that hospital, the sky looked bluer. It just looked bluer. I was walking around trying to find my car. I didn't know I was in a daze, but the sky looked bluer. I was paying attention to every insect. The flowers just looked more prettier. The people looked amazing. Because I was like, this might be the last time I'm going to see this. And I'm like, just everything just looked different. And then the news people called me and said, where are you at? And I said, I just found out I got cancer. And it was like, what? Oh my God. And it was like, and I was like, you know what? Go interview so-and-so, da-da-da-da-da. I removed myself as the organizer, the person. I took a back seat. I put people in the forefront. I did speak. It ended up turning into a riot. It's not my fault. T.I. called me and was like, the mayor wants to talk to you and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I'm in full-fledged working. I was like, you know what? If this is my last day, I'm just thinking this is my last. Everything is about to be my last. So let me implement all these things. Let me implement, the Obama Policing Act with the city of Atlanta. Let me have her do a just all these demands, the executive order on everything, But the city was on fire. I ended up meeting with the mayors. Just so much stuff happened. And then we had another death, another killing. Rashard.
Yep.
And when Rashard got murdered, I made a selfish decision. And I said, I'm going to Miami. And I just drove through Miami. And I went straight to the water. I went straight to the water. And I talked to every living being in that water. And I'm not into Ifa or none of that, but I just was like Oshun and Yamaya and all of them, everyone, and I was just all like, bless me, talking to the dolphins or whoever was in that ocean. I was just all like, cleanse me, heal me. And that was the day that I made the decision, like, I have to go back into me. I have to be about my self-care. Because the world is going to continue to burn. The world has been burning. And I was thinking about all of the freedom fighters from before. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and even even after they're gone, there was a torch that was passed. So I began to organize from my bed. And I was taking a chemo pill. And my body was trying to get used to this chemo pill. So I was constantly sick. And it was the music video for Little Baby. He shot his music video. It was one of the top songs of that summer. And I organized that from my bed. And so the youth, the college students from the HBCUs, they FaceTime me. And it was all like, Queen, look at what you did. Come down. And I just started crying. And I was like, I wish I was there. And they said, you are here. And I was just like, huh? What? I'm not there. And they were like, no, you're here. You passed the torch to us. And that was my level of understanding humility in leadership, that you don't have to be the face in order for you to be the face of a movement, because it's not about you. It was so many of my activist friends, even my sister Kimberly Jones, she went viral.
Yeah.
My sister Tamika Mallory went viral. Everyone is going by, they're lit. And I'm sitting in my bed and I'm just like, wow, I wish I was outside. But it was that moment when they was like, you're here because you passed this torch. That's where the real work is at, is if you're able to teach others to be leaders. And pass the torch.
So having passed the torch, how does that affect your activism now?
Oh,
do you
man.
Still do it from the background?
Yes, I do. I've been fighting against Cop City. here in Atlanta, Georgia, doing a lot of organizing around Stop Cop City. All of the, even voting, pushing the vote, canvassing, doing a lot of different things. And just more so, I think I'm moving into auntie mode.
And what do you mean by, I think I know what you mean by that, but what's your version of auntie mode?
It's just like, call me if you need anything.
Right. I'm here.
Yo, thank you for tuning in to Not All Hood. You have no idea how much of a treat this is for us. So please like, comment, subscribe. Just join the conversation. We appreciate you.
There's a certain, I think one of the things that's interesting about, one of the things I like about social media, one of the good things about it is the reach.
Yes.
Right. And the exposure.
Yes.
And the education that people can get globally on any of the important issues.
And do it from bed. Yeah. Right. If you need to be there. Yeah.
So and I think there are a lot of people who who do an effective job as social media activists.
Yeah.
But the actual on the ground, physical, giving your life and time to the cause or the causes is a whole nother level of drive, fire.
Yeah.
And your mother was very, very much an activist. So it's like you get it.
Yeah.
You get it honestly.
Yeah.
But what is that like? My dad was active in the civil rights movement. He named me after Malcolm X and Ahmaud Jamal.
Right.
So there was a certain sense of the way I was forced to carry myself just because of my environment.
Yeah.
So I carried myself a certain way.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is it like to be the daughter of, someone who was truly a freedom fighter and gave her life to being an activist? What does that do to you as a kid?
Oh man, it was hard. And I think that even this cancer healing journey that I've been on has been also healing me from that too, and having me see things differently. Because
healing me
from even some of everything being so serious.
But you were born. You were born on a march.
I was born on a march. I was born during the longest walk, which was a protest from Alcatraz, San Francisco to Washington, D.C. And my mother, in order for us to have the Freedom of Religious Act, we're able to pray and all of that in public because of the American Indian movement that my mother was a part of, with Russell Means and Dennis Banks and so many other amazing freedom fighters. And they walked. Chief Ernie Long Walker, who is my uncle, he just recently passed away, 92 years old. But he got the name Long Walker because he actually was the one that walked from Alcatraz, San Francisco to Washington, D.C. And my mother had me in D.C.
Wow.
So when she got there, she had me there. She was Muhammad Ali's public relations director. She was the woman behind the Thriller Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle, just an amazing person. And then she got into the American Indian movement, helping with all the PR work around that. So I was around the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on one side, Reverend Jesse Jackson on the other, Chief Ernie Long Walker, Cesar Chavez, just name Kwame Ture was like Uncle Kwame. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like these were the people that I was around. And I was a little girl hearing them talk on couches like this, but I was right here sitting down right here and just like listening. While all the other kids were playing, I was just like in all of these deep conversations of how they envision the world to be and how they see the world to be. And I was just like a little student just listening to all of this. So being in that environment all my life. And then when I got into high school, I started a riot at my high school because there was the skinheads and skinheads called me the N-word and wrote the N-word on my locker. Their Today Show, they ended up doing a whole week-long documentary on me around what I did called Black, White, and Angry.
And this is Chicago?
No, this was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
This is in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was, it was just really, I've always been involved in something within the community. And in Phoenix, my mother was the one that, as well as her movement friends, helped with getting Arizona to recognize the Martin Luther King holiday. So she used her sports relationship and was like, hey, both teams, NFL, boycott Arizona.
Wow.
And they did. They boycotted the Super Bowl. And that's how it was able to be voted. And like, okay, we want the Super Bowl. Let's get this Dr. King holiday. So my mom had me right there at all her meetings, town halls, everything right there with her. So it's always been just all about helping our people and fighting for freedom, justice, and equality.
But it sounds like it comes with the weight of things.
It does. As a child, I feel there needs to be a balance. Ask me this question 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have said, no, it's no weight. But the weight, I'm carrying the weight. I have over 200 cancer tumor cells in both of my lungs. And I look at these cancer tumor cells as this is anger. This is this experience. This is this. Every tumor cell represents something of the weight that I've dealt with of holding on to the weight of the world, of this movement. And I'm trying to lift that out. And so I feel like when I look at all of these great people that are older than me and that have already passed on, I don't feel that they balance. They didn't balance their self-care with helping the people. And it took cancer for me to see that.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that in dealing with what you were going through, you went straight to the land,
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah.
And I know that being indigenous and the relationship with the land and how it serves you and food, all of that plays into how cancer responds to your body.
Yeah.
My father, he passed away of cancer, and he had really gotten to a good diet.
Yeah.
But he was eating, instead of, anything that was beef or pork or anything, he'd have a couple pieces of turkey bacon
Yeah.
a day. But then my sister, who's vegan, challenged him and said, well, Dad, why don't you just do no meat? See what it does.
Yeah.
Just see. So for 30 days, he did not do just those 2 slices of turkey bacon.
Yeah.
Which, when you multiply, it is 60 slices of bacon.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're into, how many packs.
Yeah.
You have to really think about it.
Yeah.
And when he got to the doctor after 30 days, they were like, what are you doing? Your numbers are incredible. It was the meat. It was the meat. But I'm just trying to draw a relationship between how how we deal with animals and food and the land and move, and how all of that is really a part of how we heal ourselves.
It is. It's also too, when we look at what we eat. During this, I started gardening because I was like, I can't tell people to feed the community and all that. And if I don't know how to keep something alive in my house, like, let me try to grow some tomatoes,
Right. See,
some strawberries or something, But I learned about how to cultivate the soil. The soil is what's important when you're growing any type of vegetable. It's the soil. We spent more time figuring out the right components of the soil before we even put the seed in. And after that, you just put water. But the soil is so important because you could have certain type of soil that's bad soil, or that then we was putting, oh man, this lady taught me all types of stuff on just the soil alone. And I was like, wow. So imagine eating a tomato from bad soil and that energy from that. See, we learn and this is in my Native American Red Road, or our traditional ways, everything we say matakiasi, which means we're all related, or all my relations, but we're all connected in some, I don't want to get like Lion King, the circle of life, but but we're all related. We're all connected, and everything has a life force. This has a life force. This has a life force. Everything has some type of, because it came from something in order to prepare it to this. Something living. A rock is a living thing. Everything is living. And so when we're eating foods, you have to look at where was it prepared. You ever been to a restaurant and you're like, I don't like that person's energy. That waitress energy. Yeah. Or I want to meet the chef.
Right, I want to meet the chef.
Or if it's too chaotic, I'm going to be stressed out while I'm eating it. And you're wondering, why am I stressed from eating the food? Or your stomach, your body will do all types of stuff. And you're like, oh, I'm going to eat something bad. It might have been the way it was prepared.
Right.
And the energy it was put into. That's the reason why when you're in the kitchen and you're making a good meal, you put on some nice music.
Yes.
It's a whole ritual of a certain piece that you want to be able to pour into that.
Or that's why when you're sick and you want mama's
love. You want
that soup. You want that mama's chicken soup.
Even if it's Campbell's, you like it's coming with mama's love with that stir and just and that's the same thing. So even with this whole, I look at all of that. And so I found, and I think I text Malcolm in August, they said one of the biggest tumor cells have shrunken in size. And I was like, wow, because I didn't think it was possible. They said this cancer is not curable. The type that I have is T790 exon 19 mutation. So they was like, it's not curable. But to see that it minimized, I said, oh, because I don't focus on a cancer. I don't even focus, and then I don't watch the news like that like I used to. I tapped into it, and Malcolm knows this. I build Legos now. Like,
wow.
I do things that tapping into my inner child because growing up, I didn't have that. I didn't have it like that. I didn't have a lot of things where I was really tapping into my inner child. It was very, very mature, very grown up, very quickly, just because I'm around everyone and trying to change the world. And I didn't really see that balance like that,
And when you're in it, you don't really get the weight. Like if you feel purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And you end up so consumed and fulfilled by the purpose that the weight and the weight of not balancing it.
Yeah.
You don't really feel the effect of that.
Yeah.
But it seems like your changing point was, getting the cancer diagnosis and being able to flip it and being able to still be able to help people, but in a different way now.
Yeah.
Because now your whole life is about self-care and teaching people about self-care and their own mental and physical health.
That's why I created Revolutionary Healing.
Yes, man.
I created Revolutionary Healing, and I know go back to the other podcast with Kimberly Jones, but she talks about it. Yes. Stream all the episodes. But that was a plug, But,
and Shamar was there.
Yeah, and Shamar was. Yeah, but Revolutionary Healing, because the most revolutionary act you can do is heal. And that was something I had to learn. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to go on this healing journey, I'm going to invite some people. I'm going to tell the public too. Yeah. So it was once again outward.
Sure.
Again, and it's once a month day retreat that I would pick outside. We're always outside in Georgia on a third Sunday of every month. And we'll do
close to the land.
Close to the land.
Yeah.
Rains, whatever, we're outside. Snow, we're outside. Snow and coldness can also be healing.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
So we would have it just always outside. And it was great. And I took a pause on it a year ago, just so we're now a nonprofit. And I'm also seeking funds because I want a wellness center. I want to open up a wellness center, just a one-stop shop for our people here, for young people as well to heal.
And that healing process, when you are close to the land and you invite people to come into the moment.
Yeah.
What do they experience? What do you think, what transaction is happening mentally, physically for that healing? There's
so much. Now a lot of people, New Agers, call it grounding, but I just say take your shoes off and connect. Those are what the elders used to say, or they'd be like, take your shoes off, They were like, just take your shoes off, go run, go have fun. But it is connecting. You'll feel the electricity of the crater, the bottom, all the way to the top of the earth. and then connecting to you, and then connecting to the sun and the universe. It's just that divine connection that you feel when you ground your chakra, your feet chakra, to that ground. And so sometimes when I'm stressed, I'll find a park or anywhere near water here, and I would just take my shoes off. And that's the reason why a lot of our moccasins are very flat, because of the fact. So we are connecting all the time and feeling the land where we walk. So and then I have everyone hug trees. They'd be like, I don't want to hug no tree, and I'm like, no, hug a tree. Like, just put your arm. I'm like, because this is an ancient being that has seen so much, felt so much. People came to this tree on so many. This is a living ancient being. So when you hug a tree, you're connecting from here to here and wrapping. And I'm gonna have you guys hug a tree when we leave here. But we're gonna. But when you hug a tree, we'll just
get the pictures.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
yeah.
You are a literal tree hugger.
Yeah, it's very. Oh my God, the feeling that you get, because you could. And it's crazy because everyone like, you tripping. But then after I do it, and I have them do it at the retreats and stuff, they're like, wow. I mean, from babies to elders to the most gangster of gangsters, I'm like, hug a tree.
Hug a tree.
Yeah, you really feel, especially here in Georgia, but yeah, you just really feel really connected.
So you are.
Yeah.
So some would say Native American or Indigenous, or how would you describe, and then you're, and Black, African American, your father?
My father was Black and my mother was full-blood Native American.
All right, and you use that term, Native American.
Yeah, and a lot of times, a lot of people use like Black Indians. I'm not a Black Indian. Black Indians are those that have African in their lineage. Black Indians were also from the freedmens, from the southern region of the 5 civilized tribes. These were those that were freed, and then went into the tribes, and they were adopted in the tribes, and then some intermarriage.
And this is pre-Columbus.
Yeah, no, this is after Columbus.
Okay.
Yeah, this is after Columbus, and because the 5 civilized tribes is the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, the Cherokee. It's in the South. Oh God, I always forget that last one. Someone will make a comment.
That's
and
right.
say
Look,
They're gonna be so offended.
Go to the comments.
Yeah. Don't be offended. But yeah, so basically, these were the tribes that fought so hard in the southern region, that were like, you know what? We'll just go ahead and conform because we're so freaking tired of fighting. You guys are killing our people. You're putting on these Trail of Tears, on several relocation, the Indian Removal Act that happened. So they was just like, you know what? We'll just go ahead and we'll civilize. We'll cut our hair. We'll buy slaves. We'll conform. And so when they bought African slaves, a lot of them were a part of the family. I'm learning more and more stories of this by a lot of the elders that I'm learning from. I don't like getting it from a book.
Yeah.
I like to go out into the community and to the reservations and to learn these stories, because a lot of it are stories that are not going to be in a book. But
the book's not going to have the nuance.
No.
So I remember about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and reading that Native Americans own slaves.
Yeah.
And again, there was no nuance there, so it hit a reaction in me and and all of my friends, because now we're like, did you look at this link? Did you read about that?
Yeah.
But it doesn't give you the nuance.
Yeah.
Even the civilized tribes, like even the just hearing how they became the civilized tribe.
Yeah.
Essentially beat into civilization, if you will.
Yeah. A lot of people think that they did it voluntarily. That's not true. They were fighting like hell there were so many wars that were happening in the southern region, you know, and then throughout time it was a lot of intermixing, you know. That's why you hear a lot of my great grandmother's Cherokee.
Sure.
There was no Cherokee princesses, so please stop saying that. We didn't have royalty type of things in our way. We don't have like a princess or a king or, you know, like that. That was another thing that colonialism taught, you know, to try to sexualize the Native American woman. A lot of people don't know that Pocahontas was 12 years old. And she was basically our first situation of missing and murdered Indigenous women or sex traffic. They used pictures of Pocahontas, this 12-year-old little girl, and gave it to people in Europe and said, look at what you could get you a little Indian girl
with long hair,
exotic skin, and everything. And so that's why they always over sexualize Native American women, and like we're some exotic beings that do savagery, you know, exotic things, you know, like they do that. And so she was the first person that they did like that. And so so these type of things that are taught, you know, of our history isn't true. So the civilized tribes, they did own slaves, but from my understanding, it was more like a family type of situation, more of
you know, when I look at the pictures and the descriptions, they talk about it in terms of a familial unit.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
To see that would be the nature of their unit. I also think it's so interesting that when we think about the real history of Native Americans and those who were enslaved and African Americans, Blacks, that today it's very difficult to see Indigenous people or Native Americans and try to even have a relationship. I mean, I live on the East Coast, and I can remember talking about the Redskins, right, to the students in class, and they didn't understand what was the matter with the name Redskins, who are now the commanders. And I said, well, do you know any Native Americans?
Yeah.
And they said, no. And then I thought about it, and I said, neither do I. Oops.
Yeah.
You know, so I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn who were, you know, heads of this tribe or heads of this, and I asked them, please, I need you to come speak to my class or just speak to me, because there's no natural interaction for me and a Native American on any given day.
Yeah.
I don't work with them. I don't know that. I mean, I know now. Right? But, you know, just in terms of throughout my life.
Yeah.
Then when I finally did reach someone, they were afraid of me being an interloper. So it's very interesting that I've tried to, you know, establish relationships, but there are some guards there.
Oh, yeah.
From what I see in terms of how Native Americans, it's like when I come across Amish people, they've got their barriers.
Yeah.
Or Hasidic Jews, they've got their barriers. And I had that same same feeling when I came across those who I just at least reached out to online, that there were some barriers. And I'm wondering, is that real, or am I looking at this in a different lens?
No, it's very much real. And it was set up that way because you have the 5 civilized tribes, and I'm gonna say this history in the quickest way I can.
Okay.
But you have the 5 civilized tribes that did own African slaves, and then you have the freedmen's. They were called freedmen's. And the thing is that they were allotted land and certain rights, like the Native American tribe that they came from. Then you had a lot of this land had oils and resources and all these things. And they were like, okay, you all are going to have to end up kicking out some of these freedmen slaves because we don't like what you guys are building here. If we look at Black Wall Street, we're taught in the Black community that is predominantly Black people. No. They were Black and Native Americans. They were freedmen's. So that just goes to show, and that land was sovereign land that was allotted to the Black Indians. If you look at, there's a movie I love for everyone to watch it. It's really good. It is about the Osage tribe with Leonardo DiCaprio. It's
Oh, yeah.
Flower. Yeah.
Flower of the Killer Moon.
Yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Amazing movie.
Yeah.
I did not know that history. So I started reaching out to Osage. People like, what? This is what happened? They were like, that was just one of many tribes in Oklahoma that was coming up on wealth.
Yeah.
They on so much wealth. Extreme wealth. And they said it wasn't just the Native American tribes, but it was also the Black Indians that were on the Trail of Tears that was going to Oklahoma that was also a part of these tribes. So you're seeing two powerful race of people, Black people, Native American people, joining together to build wealth, to be able to fight back, to be able to learn from each other and commune. And you having these songs that are sounding kind of African and native, and the regalia was starting to blend together. You're just seeing all this beauty that is happening. And it was like, you know what? This has to stop. We have to be able to start separating Black, because first, before all of that, many of the slaves were running to Native American tribes in order for them to be free. So they were running away from massa to be free. So fast forward that to now, we in the Black community were barely taught about who we are, of our own history. Let alone Native American, let alone Mexican, Mexicana, or any other race. We learned a lot about white folks, white history, but we didn't learn enough about who we are as Black people. So the thing is that we ended up, we did not learn a lot about who we are. Mm-hmm. President Joe Biden just recently apologized on the treatment of the boarding schools.
Oh, yes.
He did it last week. My mother was a product of the boarding schools. So you have I believe it was Jefferson, or is it Jefferson? Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson, he said, kill the Indian, save the man. That was his moniker for the Indian boarding schools, basically stripping Native American children from their homes and cutting their hair, changing their names.
Getting rid of the culture.
The whole culture. They said that my mother said that her hair was shaved because they said that all Native American kids have lice. They were washed with bleach and all types of, just chemicals. And they were molested by priests and nuns, and they were murdered and killed and then just shoved and and they were like, oh, your child just ran off. Mm-hmm. Just the level of treatment that was happening to Native American young people all the way up to 1993, not the 1800s, all the way up to 1993. This is what happened in America, in our own backyard. And so you have Natives that were stripped from their own selves, language, history, everything. Then they're being taught Black is bad. In the Black community, we're taught Black is bad. Look at this white princess. Look at this whiteness. This is great. White is holy. Black is evil and everything. So we're even taught to deny who we are. So if two race of people are being stripped of who they are and from a colonial system, so when we meet each other, we don't see ourselves because we barely see ourselves.
Yes.
So and if we're not seeing ourselves, we can't even think about somebody else and what they're
not realizing that the exact same time we're dealing with the same type of oppression by the same oppressor. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with the same oppression by the same oppressor.
And it's so parallel. Like we were talking earlier, about terms, about names, right?
Yes.
And Indian, on the reservations and in the community, people still use Indian in the way we still use the N-word.
Yep.
Like it's a derogatory term, but so in these parallel lives, we're still holding on to this this term that was used as a negative towards us.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting and I'm listening, and I keep going back to James Baldwin saying that you cannot be, to be Black and conscious in America means to be full of rage.
So, oh my goodness.
And I think about, you know, white privilege has become such a buzzword, and white people get defensive when they hear about white privilege. A lot of white people, you know, they feel like white supremacy doesn't really exist. And, you know, we're talking about these stories, these very real stories that still have such an effect on our people.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're looking at a group of people who want to ban books and ban this education and cut funding to institutions who teach this history. And I'm a firm believer that our history, slavery, and I shout out to Michael Harriot because this is his term, but slavery is white history. Right? We're taught that it's Black history. No, it's fucking white history. And people want to ban these books and ban this education because they don't want to be seen for the atrocities that they have committed on this soil. And you know, and I'm looking at you and I'm listening to you, and I just think about when we hear about Native Americans, right? And we see pictures of Native Americans and we hear stories, it's always oftentimes images of Native Americans who don't look like you. Like, we don't talk about the biracial Native American. So it's like, you know, I'm thinking about you and your fight, you know, it's like you're fighting on, you're fighting for the
Both
Black
sides,
community and for the Native American community. And like, I mean, it's stressing me the fuck out. Right? So I can only, I can only try to imagine the stresses and the weight that you have to carry and that, you know, biracial Native Americans have to carry. And we talk about being marginalized, talk about, you know, history being erased. And, you know, a lot of white people don't get it, but like being Black and being oppressed and being marginalized, like we have our thing, but you go, Native Americans actually have it worse than we do. In terms of being like literally being erased. Being pushed aside, being cast aside, being literally being taken off of this main soil and cast aside to this unwanted soil, if you would. I don't know, it
so many parallels, right?
Yes, and it incenses me. I mean, we're in November, right?
Native American Heritage Month,
right. So it's, I don't know. I guess I'm just venting because I'm incensed, and it's just bringing up again the rage that we as conscious Black people, that we have to, in our consciousness, have to consciously suppress. Because if we don't, it's like I love what Kimberly Jones says. They're lucky we want equality and not revenge. Right? But there's a level of, again, for those of you who don't believe white privilege exists or who believe that white privilege is only connected to a financial situation, there's a great privilege in not having to suppress rage. And navigate and be functional in a society that does everything it can, either blatantly or on the low, to make you feel like you don't belong.
And I always feel like I'm the oppressed under the oppressed.
Right.
That is how I feel daily. That's how I feel when I'm on social media. This season is so hard for many Indigenous people. We have that just passed. It's still a federally recognized holiday, Columbus Day, federally. Each city has changed. Certain cities have changed it to Indigenous Peoples Day. I changed it in several cities, including the city of Atlanta, the city of South Fulton, Gwinnett. But I went to the governor's office and was like, let's change it for the state. Oh, no, it's still Columbus Day. Biden last year said, I want to recognize it, but he did not do an executive order or anything to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day. So it's very triggering, not just for Native Americans on the mainland, but also for our Indigenous relatives from Puerto Rico, our Indigenous relatives from Cuba, from the Caribbean, because Hispaniola, or, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, that's all the areas that Columbus went to. And he beheaded these babies and did so much to the Taino people first. But that opened up the gateway to slavery, to the transatlantic slave trade. So even as Black people, we are affected by Columbus because he opened up that way to come here for everyone else to continue to come here and take over and do everything that he did, and those that came after him. Then we have what just passed, Halloween. Everyone wants to dress up as a Native American chief or a Pocahontas. A little 12-year-old girl that was sex trafficked, that was treated like a sex symbol in order for people to come to America. The way that they want to dress up as that and make it as a sexy Pocahontas. There is certain celebrities that put a headdress on. Even in yesterday, I was like, I cannot believe this celebrity put a headdress on in 2024. And the comments was like, what are you doing?
Good.
What are you doing? But still, there's still always that one or that 5 or that 20 or 100s that still want to put on a headdress and make mockery and make that as a Halloween costume. Our culture is not a costume. Then we're dealing with Native American Heritage Month, which is November. This is the month that we're supposed to acknowledge Native Americans in the contributions and the beauty, not from yesteryear, but even the contributions of today, that we're still here, that we are doing amazing stuff today. But then it's also the month, which is Thanksgiving. Which is not a good holiday when we know the history of it. We call it the National Day of Mourning, what the American Indian movement called it. It's a national day of mourning for our Wampanoag relatives that are in Massachusetts. Every year they have to deal with that. Every year of everyone celebrating this day. No matter how we call it, Friendsgiving, Family Day. Sure. Well, we like to change it up. We like to dress it up. But at the end of the day, Wampanoag people and the Pequot people are like, this day, our ancestors, our direct descendants were murdered and used for this land that we're on. And so we're constantly, even with that, I deal with that on my Native, and I deal with it on my Black side, have all the things that we deal with as Black people. And then so for the person online that had that guard up, there's also a community online within the Black community. And I'm gonna call you guys out. Y'all know who y'all are. That look at people that look like my mother. My mother was very, very light. I mean, my mom probably looked like a light-skinned Mexican woman. Okay. Like my mom was very light. But they call people that look like that a $5 Indian and say that I'm the real Native American, what natives are supposed to be. We are not a monolithic people. We come in all different shades, sizes, everything. My tribe, which is in South Dakota, North Dakota, they didn't see black people there. this, like when we look at the slavery and we look at the translate, even we look at the travels, they weren't going to North Dakota, South Dakota. They didn't have, so there wasn't a lot of intermixing of Black people on my tribe. There was a lot of intermixing with French, but there's still today many full-blooded Lakota people that are very, very light. So so when we talk about the original Native Americans are very dark. No, I feel that every tribe has a creation story. We learn this in Africa. I haven't been to Africa, but I meet a lot of Africans and they tell me their creation stories. Mm-hmm. Many of them say they come from the mud. Mm-hmm. Many of them say they come from the stars. Many of them say they go to the Bible or the Quran, these holy scriptures. They go to that. But every tribe has various holy stories of their creation stories. And I feel as indigenous people, indigenous means original people of the land. So this is really basically all people of color. Mm-hmm. I feel that indigenous people of the world need to respect each other's creation stories, not of these colonial separatism that we are taught. In our true traditional values, we are taught that everything is the circle of life. In Africa, the tribes there, they believe we are connected to the monkeys, to the giraffe, the zebra. They have a connection to these beings in certain parts, in Kenya, everywhere. They all have these connections to the land. Here in North America, or Turtle Island, South America, North America, Canada, we have a connection to everything. We think we're all connected.
But when we talk about connection to the land,
yes,
how would you explain how the casinos kind of came about? Because that's very transactional. I mean, I want to call it a partnership in a sense, in terms of the government gets something, Native Americans get something in terms of having these casinos. They do make money, but then with the same token, the situation of Native Americans and the number of people that are dying or on drugs or commit suicide.
Yeah,
I think about all those moving parts, and I really want it to be a little more fluent for me to understand how all those dots are connected. Because from what I understand, and I could be wrong, you're the one to correct me. Mm-hmm. A lot of money is made on both sides, more so on the government side, but lots of money on the Native American side too. And if that is the case, where's the money? How is it funneled back into the community? And why does it seem like there's such a dearth of resources and just connections to make reservations and Native American soil more viable?
So the casinos, my tribe, we have a casino, and it's only us in that casino. And no one is coming to Pine Ridge, South Dakota on let's go there for a vacation. We're not a top. They go to Mount Rushmore, which is about 2 hours away in Rapid City. They're not coming to Pine. Only truckers drive through there. So our casino's not doing well. The casinos that are doing well are those that are near inner city or city, metropolitan areas. Those are the ones that are doing well. And then there is a stipend that certain tribes give out to their tribal members, depending on the numbers too. So I always look at it's group economics. It's community economics. And I love the Seminole tribe. And I'm going to use this story really quickly about the Seminole tribe. And I feel that the Black community can learn from the Seminole tribe. The Seminole tribe is in Florida. They started off, and it was like the government. This is my Ebonic way of telling this history, so I'm gonna just make it quick.
Okay.
So anyway, white folks came. So boom, check it. White folks.
Nah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying? But white folks came in and was like, "Yo, we're gonna take Florida." And the Seminoles were like, nah, over our dead body, we about to fight. You know what I'm saying? It's on. So they ended up fighting. Okay. And so it was the first Seminole War. And many died, but they won. The government ended up putting more resources, like, nah, we got to get Florida, So then some of the Seminoles, they ended up, they was like, no, we don't want to fight this war again. We're going to bounce. We're going to go to Georgia. We're going to go to North Carolinas, the Carolinas. We're going to go, we're just going to leave out of here. We're going to go more up north. So those that remained, I believe it was about like 10,000, or no, about 20,000 of them said, we'll remain and we're going to fight. So it was the Second Seminole War. So they ended up winning. And when they won certain land. So then from there, the government was like, all right, y'all can have that certain land. It was from, I would say almost as high as Orlando, going through the swamps all the way down to the Everglades.
Okay.
So they won a lot of that land. So then the Seminoles was like, all right, we need to come together because we're not going to be a federally recognized tribe, meaning we do not need the government for us to depend on. So you have today there's over 500 federally recognized tribes and non-federally recognized tribes in America. So the Seminoles were like, no, we don't need the government. We're going to do this ourselves. We're going to live off the land and everything, and we're going to do it ourselves. So, Florida oranges?
Sure.
That's the Seminoles. They was like, we're going to learn. So they learned from Cubans. So the Bahamians from Bahamas, Cubans, they were all connecting with the Seminole people and was like, all right, this is how you learn. This is how you're going to grow sugar canes and everything. So they were basically that main agriculture for Florida. For oranges. So then they was like, we're going to also do tourism, make little dolls, and then have the alligator fights that you see when you go there and everything. Then there was a tribal president that came in the 1990s. He was white and Seminole. He came in and he learned a lot from white folks, and he looked up who was going bankrupt, what companies, what organizations are going bankrupt that the Seminoles can invest in order for them to be able to make money for the tribe.
Right.
So and we do this all the time with our family or even with our mates or whatever. Like, what are we going to invest in?
Yeah.
For generational wealth.
Sure.
Wow.
So this is what that tribal president did. So he looked at Hard Rock and he said, they're going bankrupt. Let's buy the trademark. Not buy the restaurants. Let's just buy the name. So I think it was like 300,000 or something. They bought the name. Then now that they got the name, he went back to the tribe and said, all right, we got the name. You want to play basketball? You want to be a rapper? You want to be whatever, I don't care, whatever it is that you want to be. Nope, everyone's going to put all that on pause. It's about 10,000 people in the tribe. You're going to go to school in hospitality, and you're going to learn how to be able to run a hotel, how to run casinos and tunnel vision, because this is about our tribe getting to generational wealth. Wow. So everyone was like, all right, let me go ahead, learn about hospitality and retail, everything. So everyone went back to school, learned these things. Then from there, they had their first casino. They had to fight for casino rights. Because remember, they're not federally recognized, but their land they own that land. So they had their first casino. Today, they own every Hard Rock in the world.
Wow.
The Seminoles is the most, I would say shout out to the Seminoles. Y'all know y'all give me love when I come down there. I love the Seminoles. Wow. Every person gets a stipend, even a baby. I may not know the exact numbers, but it's between 10 to 20K a month. That tribe. And it's about 10,000, between 7 to 10,000 people in that tribe. That is what happens when we shut everyone out and we are focused on group community economics. There is no reason why us in the Black community should be able to be on that level of status in regards to generational wealth. Sometimes we have to be able to listen to our elders and say, you know what? Or the people in our community and say, you know what? I know you want to be a basketball player. I know you want to be a rapper. I know you want to do that. No, let's go ahead and put 5 years of our time on learning how to do a farm or learning how to have our own Vegas.
Right.
Or our own strip of another Black Wall Street. And we have to be like, we plan, our chiefs said that what we plan today, we plan for 7 generations from now. When I was in Standing Rock, and it was the first time that all of our chiefs came together from every single one of our tribes that we haven't seen in over 100 years. And they said this meeting, and I was in that meeting, it was so beautiful. They said the decisions we make today is for 7 generations from now.
And we aren't taught to think like that.
No.
At all. We're conditioned to think about
tomorrow.
Yeah. Maybe 5 years from now.
So with with the Seminoles, so when you're talking about the casinos,
yes,
there's many casinos that are not doing well. Many of them we're dealing with the same way that we have so many other options and certain things in our own communities of generational wealth. Mm-hmm. Not on that level, but on certain levels. It could be a Black-owned bank. It could be, just different things that we have access to. But the problem is that we're still dealing with high rates of suicide. We're still dealing with drug, alcoholism, and exactly what you said about that rage. We in the Native American community imagine not even being acknowledged by the people of land that's stolen from you. So there are Native Americans all over the world. Mm-hmm. And on the East Coast, they're not going to have a feather on.
Right. That's right.
They're going to, you might thought it was a white lady. Mm-hmm. You might thought it was just a person that just full blood Black. Or you might thought they were Asian. Or you might thought they were Mexican. But natives are all over. We have, it was the first time ever in history that there was a show of Native Americans that were produced, directed, starred. And it was called Reservation Dogs
on
FX.
Yeah,
but that was the first time ever in history that we just got that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think about this. So every time, being Black and Native American, I always think about my nieces and nephews. So even if I'm in a Black space, I have to amplify my mother and my mother's people. Because the thing is that we're not even being talked about. When we're like some moniker. Oh, I live on a street that has a squaw or a Native American name, or we're like some historical monument,
right?
Or
that small towns are named after across the country.
Yeah. We're not even like we're. Oh, I read about Native Americans and the chiefs and Sitting Bull. But did you know that Deb Haaland, did you read about her today? She's the Secretary of Interior. You know what I'm saying? Or did you read about, Devery Jacobs, the actress from Reservation Dogs that was just in a Marvel movie and all of that? We have so Taboo from Black Eyed Peas. Mm-hmm. We have so many Native Americans that are doing amazing stuff today.
Yeah.
But if they say that they're Native, we just envision them braids,
sure,
a feather, and just looking really stoic,
yes,
know?
Yes.
I think there's something to be said for that in terms of as we think about history being erased. As Black people, we think about it's something to really think about in terms of not just our history being erased, but our significance being displaced.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who. I have a lot of friends on both sides of the political spectrum who are really concerned about immigration.
Yeah.
Right. Because there is a threat to our standing in this country. I was just watching Dr. Claude Anderson talking about powernomics, and you think about there is a very real path for our being displaced and our history being erased, very much like Native Americans. Yeah. And it's something we really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. And so many parallels. I mean, we think about missing women, or we think about drugs coming into the community, the suicide rate that has gone up in both communities, the contentious relationship with police.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a really big thing. But we don't hear about that in the media. We really don't hear about that. And I'm wondering what it would take for these two parallel universes that are so much alike to join forces, or is I don't want to say the damage done, but how far are we off from that even happening? Because they're the same concerns.
I see a shift happening with this new generation of young people that are seeing the similarities. When you go to the reservation, you're hearing young people listening to hip hop, Black rappers, Black hip hop. And they're not listening to some of the new stuff. They're going to the crates. If you go to a Native American hip hop show, you'll feel like you're back in the 90s, 80s of hip hop. And you're like, yo, this is dope. Like, this is authentic culture of hip hop. You know, I feel like there is a major, and then also too, when I took Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, who was also he's half Standing Rock. He's from my sister tribe. And we went to my reservation. And he was just, it was so many Native and Black kids. When I was growing up, I think it was only just me. And I felt like, I don't see myself. It was very rare I saw myself as any other Black and Native kids. So I really was like an oddball, felt like, oh, do I even belong at times? Thank God for my cousins constantly like, nah, cuz, you are a cool cousin from the city, you know? Right. But going back there, seeing these beautiful Black and Native girls that were dancing at the powwow, I was mocked when I would be on the powwow with my shawl and dancing. They're like, get that N-word girl off of the powwow. Whose daughter is that? That's the type of stuff that I dealt with. But I cried last powwow seeing these little Black Native American kids and even adults dancing. And I said, wow. And then also too, here in Atlanta, there's a powwow that happens in the inner city, right over here in over here. But they, just seeing, Black people come and Native people, like I think there's a shift that is happening. Social media, we have to kind of get away. We have to get off our phones sometimes and go into the communities. We have to stop getting our history from these 5-second memes and going into the community and getting firsthand accounts of who we are and our history. Especially in the South, there is so many Black Indians and so many stories. When you go to the Muskogee, the Creek, even the Seminoles, you'll get that full story of them owning slaves and what did that actually look like. I feel like there's over 500 federally and non-federally recognized tribes in America. That means that's over 500 different regalia. 500 different languages, 500 different songs. We're not monolithic. We're not the same. So when we're talking about Native Americans, we have to stop generalizing it. The same way that we do with Africans. Africa is the largest continent in the world, and we're like, I'm wearing something African. Right. Oh, this is an African song. And you're like, and it's funny because when I talk to my African friends, they're like, oh, that woman is wearing a wedding dress. And she thinks that that's just something that is not what she's supposed to wear. What is she doing? But we generalize these things, not realizing that this is a cowrie shell. And it's reversed, but in Africa, it's the other way because it shows the feminine. But on the native cowrie shell, it shows just the behind part.
I see.
So everything has a story. Every print has a story in all indigenous culture of the world. And we have to see our connection, and we have to strip ourselves from colonial things. And the first colonial thing that we have to strip ourselves of is thinking that we're separate. Yeah. We're all connected. We're Takiasi.
Not all hood.